January 6th, 2020. Welcome to 2020. And today's podcast is going to be about the Delta CX decision matrix. I'm hoping that this is something that will help everybody with some of their decisions at work. As usual, if you are listening live, I am taking questions live on LinkedIn and also on YouTube. So I'm going to get those links set up. For those of you joining on the audio only podcast, welcome. You will not be able to ask questions live, but we're still glad you're here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be talking about the decision matrix, and I'm going to take questions that you guys have, especially related to making decisions at work and communicating those decisions. So I'm also going to be reading from my Delta CX book, which of course is still available on Amazon as Kindle and paperback. So check it out. If you see something on Amazon that makes it look like it's out of print, it is not out of print. That is just a incorrect link. Search again. So inside the Delta CX book, we've got a section on what I call the decision matrix. And I'm going to open up my Kindle version on my computer and read you a little bit from there. And we'll talk about some examples and how I would use this to help us with decision making at work and explain our decisions. And again, as you have questions, please add them to the LinkedIn or the YouTube chat room. I'm going to monitor those and answer things as soon as possible. And let's keep it relevant to this if possible. So, the Delta CX decision matrix uses a number of factors to judge who should do the work, when it should be done, and possibly how. And the way that I like to use a kind of short form, a mnemonic for remembering the four criteria that go into the decision matrix is a need for a decision has snuck up on you, but it's SNUC. So SNU and C will each stand for something in our matrix. Again, this is in the book. So if you have the print version or the Kindle version, you'll just be able to find it. It's got, let's see, for those of you who are in the print book, let me see where this is. It looks like it's around page 50-ish. So it's not its own chapter. So, and those of you in the Kindle, you can just search for decision matrix. So let's talk about the four elements that go into the decision matrix. And again, I abbreviate them as S, N, U, and C. S stands for strategy or goal achievement. Does this work item or decision achieve stated goals or play strongly into our strategy? Rate this from 0 to 5, where 5 indicates that this achieves a goal or is highly relevant to our strategy. If this is someone's ego or pet project or has nothing to do with strategy or goals, feel free to give this a 0. Number 2 is, of course, the letter N in our mnemonic SNUC, and that is the number of people affected. Our decisions can be weighted by how many of our potential or current customers or users this might affect. Rate this from 0 to 5, where 5 indicates this affects 100% of customers, everybody. Nothing affects 0 customers, but if it affects very few, if it would be a real edge case, you could give this a 0. And eventually we're going to add all these up, or we're going to have a number, and I'll tell you what to do with that number. The third criterion is letter U, and it is urgency or severity. That is, how time sensitive is this challenge or decision? Ira says it's page 38 in his book, so apologies. My Microsoft Word is saying page 50. You guys will find it. Letter U, urgency or severity. How time sensitive is this challenge or decision? How much are customers impacted? Is this mission critical? Is this feature life or death? As we've talked about, when you read my book, you'll see sometimes something is mission critical or life or death, whether it's military, hospitals, airplanes. There's so many examples of where stuff is really, unfortunately, make or break in a very serious way. So rate this from 0 to 5, with 5 being the most urgent or severe. I would only give something a score of 0 if it wouldn't matter if you did this now or if you did it in 5 years, because it's not urgent or severe. Finally, the most important criterion is our last one. It's letter C in our SNUC, and that is cost to reverse. And the idea of cost to reverse is that most decisions are reversible with enough time and money. Rate this from 0 to 5, with 5 being the most expensive and time consuming to change or reverse. That could be change, reverse, undo, fix. If something is inexpensively and easily reversible, you could give this a 0 or 1. If something can't be reversed because it really does make or break something or affect life or death, you might want to give this a 5, that this is not something we might be able to fix later. And of course, the cost to reverse is directly related to calculating risk. To continue an example from earlier in the book, where I talked about, for those of you who read the book, you know I talk about the GE light bulb factory reset that went viral for being so difficult for customers to do. So I mentioned in the book, what would it cost our company to decide later that our smart light bulb should have been produced with a simple reset button rather than a bizarre Morse code pattern to factory reset your bulb? What's the risk in having smart bulbs that the public bought that can't be retrofitted with the reset button, but you still have to support those light bulbs? So, because cost to reverse is so huge and something that I think gets so forgotten when we are making decisions at our company. People think, yeah, we can fix that later. Yeah, we could undo it later. But we rarely think, what would it cost to fix us later? What would it cost to undo later? Can it be undone later? So I want for the decision matrix, the first 3 scores are just scores, and the last one is going to be doubled. Excuse me. So when you give that score a 0 to 5, you're going to double it. That means when we add these together, we will end up having a maximum possible score of 25. Because again, the last one, there were 4 criteria. The last one is doubled, so it could be worth 10 instead of 5. The lowest possible score is 0. That would be, wow, this is really unrelated to our goals. It affects nearly 0 customers. It's not on fire, not particularly important. And if we did it, it would be easy to undo or fix later. The highest possible score is 25, meaning that it's highly tied to our goals and strategy. It affects all of our customers. It's urgently on fire and or quite severe, and it would be wildly expensive or time consuming or even impossible to fix or change later. And the way that I explain using this score is that anything that is a 10 or under when you come out with your final score is possibly something we shouldn't even do. It could be something that should be lower priority. It could be something that is a stakeholder ego project, something that it could be deprioritized. Sometimes it's something that we could give to interns, because it's not a high priority project. It's not mission critical. Ultimately, anything that's low importance, little to do with our goals, doesn't affect too many customers, sure, we could eliminate it, we could rethink it, we could evolve it. But if we were keeping it around for some reason, we could give it to interns or to juniors as just something they could play with. Because again, it's not important, it's not mission critical. And even if you're giving it to juniors or interns, still have seniors and leaders who can oversee what they're doing. That doesn't mean you just let them build something. We want to make sure that they're overseen. So I would end up judging anything with a score of 10 or lower as kind of playing with a low priority idea. Now, anything that ends up with a score of 11 or higher should be given to pros and experts, our CX and UX action heroes, to take care of mission critical work and these decisions, because it wouldn't make sense to have something that important that affects many people, that's key to our strategy, that's difficult or expensive to undo later, and give it to non-experts. So to me, one of the first ways that you can use the decision matrix is to try to figure out who should do this work. Is it okay if the product manager plays with some wireframes? Well, generally, we don't love when that happens. But if this were really low on the decision matrix, could we kind of let that go? Maybe. What about if an ambiguity comes up? And let's say it's Endeavor QA. There's an ambiguity that comes up, and we're wondering, hey, who could handle this ambiguity? if this ambiguity comes out low on that decision matrix, then perhaps we set up a good relationship, as we should have anyway, with our engineers, where if there's an ambiguity or something missing once it's in the dev or QA stages, then perhaps we empower dev or QA to come up with their own solution to it if they want to. Some like to do that, some would rather pass it back to us. But if it's low on the decision matrix, if it got a low score, maybe let them come up with a solution and run it by you, just to double check, just for that collaboration, not to come up with a solution and run with it themselves. That is not collaborative, but to come up with the solution themselves, run it by you, just to try to move things faster and use everybody's time more wisely. If this comes out higher on the decision matrix, it might be a better idea for to not have the engineering come up with a solution, and to make sure that the UX and CX pros are more heavily involved in that solution, so that it gets the full attention of people who are the experienced experts. Now, again, we're live on LinkedIn and YouTube. I'm going to check if there's any questions about the decision matrix or how you would use it. So feel free to ask any questions. As usual, I'm about 30 to 60 seconds behind you due to a lag, but I will be checking for questions. So ask away if you have any questions about this. So let's try an example together, and I'm going to give you one that is close to my heart. And again, I'm guessing on this. I'm just totally guessing, but let's try one together. LinkedIn events. Now, I don't work at LinkedIn. I've got nothing to do with LinkedIn events. But gosh, I use LinkedIn events. I think they're only available right now to a certain percentage of users, and maybe like an experiment or trial period. Eventually, they would be available to all users, but for now, it's some people see it, and I think some people don't. So I've got LinkedIn events, and I'm extremely frustrated with them. So let's take a look at where LinkedIn events would fall on our decision matrix. And for starters, try to figure out how important this project is to our strategy, and also whether or not it should be done by interns, juniors, or maybe more senior people. So, number one, does LinkedIn events fit in with the overall strategy of LinkedIn? Now, I don't know. I honestly don't know, because I don't know what LinkedIn's strategy is. I kind of can't tell. The way their algorithm is tuned and the way they keep deprioritizing things in the algorithm, like their own articles or their own certain types of posts, I can't figure out what their strategy is. So I'm not too sure. So I figure just to play this safe, we could always give this events. Probably. Did someone think that they needed events? Because it's kind of maybe totally guessing here. So what if we gave this a 2? I'm going to write this down. And then how many people are affected by LinkedIn events? Well, right now it's just a small percentage of people that are test driving events. It's not available to the public yet, as far as I know. So it's kind of a medium number of people affected right now. So later on, it could be more, and that would change our decision matrix. But let's say right now it's also a 2, because some of us are able to create LinkedIn events and some of us are not able to create them. I think we can all see them, but not all of us can create them. So number of people affected, I'll give it a 2, on the assumption that maybe 10-20% of people are able to do this at this time. Third criterion, urgency or severity. How time sensitive is it to create LinkedIn events? Well, again, without knowing their strategy, I don't know how important it is to roll out LinkedIn events as soon as possible. And I think they were rolled out a few months ago. So I don't know how urgent it is, but in the scheme of LinkedIn, considering how long they went without letting you do events, and considering how low the feature set is now, it really feels like a minimum viable product. It doesn't seem that urgent or severe. So I might give it a 2. I'm just going to write that down. Just writing 2s down so far. And again, someone might disagree. Someone might say, no, I work at LinkedIn. This is highly important. We'd give this other scores. Great. I just don't know. So this is just an example of how I'm guessing it, but how you might use it in your job for something that's going on there. Finally, our important one, cost to reverse. If LinkedIn events were a total bomb, disaster, mess, did anyone get hurt? Can it be undone? Can it be fixed? What would it cost to do that? Since the current event seems like a minimum viable product to me, I would imagine the cost to reverse is probably on the low side. I would guess that it's definitely not a big expense for LinkedIn to completely remove them or otherwise fix them. But they obviously did spend some money developing them, integrating them, making them viewable, making them shareable. So this is probably maybe a one or two. I'll give it another two just to try to be fair. So we've got 4 twos, and we add another two because the last one gets doubled because of its importance. So that gives us a score of 10. That's kind of on our cusp of whether or not this can be done by interns and juniors or whether it should really be done by seniors and leaders and things like that, principals. So what's going on? So if you were to look at it events was created by interns or juniors. It's really half baked. It doesn't understand time zones. So when I schedule the time it actually starts, because it might be 5 o'clock p.m. where I am, but it's 10 a.m. where you are. It's 9:30 at night where you are. It's 7 in the morning where you are. It's tomorrow. It doesn't understand that. It shows everybody around the world 5 p.m. And of course, that's confusing. That's bad UX. That's going to lead people to try to show up to the podcast at the wrong time if they're listening live. So that looks rather half baked. It also requires a physical location. So it looks like nobody imagined that anybody would hold an event that was online. Nobody would hold a webinar. Nobody would hold a live stream. Nobody would hold a Zoom meeting. So this also seems a little bit short-sighted, but again, this could just be things people on the one end you could say, well, someone stripped that down if this is a minimum viable product, but I would say, well, hold on, it's not totally viable if it doesn't understand events and if it doesn't understand world time zones. To me, these seems like things that shouldn't have been taken out of a minimum viable product. I can't prove that this is a minimum viable product or that these were taken out. I am just guessing. Um, so I would say this is something that could be given to juniors to play with, but it should have had more oversight from seniors, principals, leads, other people, because to me, it has some key UX flaws that are making me crazy. Now, if I had changed any of these scores along the way, it would have ended up kind of over my line of 10 and under for a final score or 11 or higher. So for example, if we said that, well, eventually LinkedIn events will affect 100% of users because either you're seeing the event and being invited to it, or you're creating the event. Because right now you can all see it, but not everyone can create one. So if I were to change that score from 2 to 5 and say it now affects 100% of users, everyone's going to have some sort of interaction with events, whether as an invitee or someone who can view one or someone who can make one. Now our score is 4, 6, 8, 13. That does put us just over the cusp. Surely it's not a high enough score for this to feel mission critical, life or death, highly urgent, super prioritized, but having it just over that cusp of the scoring that I use says, you know what, maybe this isn't the right thing for us to give to interns or juniors to play with. And again, we always hope that juniors know a lot more than interns, but let's just say interns. This isn't the right thing to give to interns to play with. Let's find another project that affects fewer people that could be better for interns. So again, for those of you just joining live, we're talking about the Delta CX decision matrix that is available in the book that I'm also explaining to you live. You don't have to buy the book. It's also on the Delta CX website, I believe. And there's also a link to a little online survey you can take where you can create your own scores, and the system will tell you what your final score is and give you a suggestion. So that is available from deltacx.com. Now, I don't have a system that lets me put cool graphics up on the screen, so I have gone old school and I have printed out pages. So deltacx.com to learn more about our world and the book and other services you can get from me and my team. So that would be an option for you. So if there's any questions coming up about the Delta CX decision matrix, let me know. We're 20 minutes in. I normally go no longer than an hour if there are questions, but if there aren't questions, we can certainly uh, end early. I'm trying to think of another good example of something that we could do a decision matrix about. Let's, since we have Ira joining us today, I don't know if he's still listening, but let's talk about your company's HR system. Who should work on your company's HR system? How important is this? Is this mission critical? So let's, and again, I'm being very general about this. We could be more specific about whether this is for job candidates, whether this is for existing employees. I'm being just very general right now, just to kind of play with the decision matrix so you can get some examples. So let's look back at our criteria. Number one, letter S for SNUC, strategy or goal achievement. Where in our company strategy would having a great HR system play in? Let's imagine this is the system for existing employees to understand their benefits, to understand their salary, to understand their days off or available days off, to understand other perks that they get, to ask for time off. Did I say that yet? To possibly look for other jobs and apply for another job within the organization. So I would say this is pretty high on strategy because we do aim for employee happiness and satisfaction. So I would say this is maybe not you would hope it's the pinnacle, but you can't say everything's a five. If everything's a five, nothing's a five. So just for fun, let's say this is a 4 out of 5. I'm going to write that on my sheet in front of me. A 4 out of 5 for internal strategy and goals, that we really want to have a great system for our current employees, and that is a key part to the strategies that we have for internal employee satisfaction. Now, how many people is this affected? Does this affect very few people, or does this affect all of our employees? This would be the system that all employees have to use. So I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. Writing that down. Next, letter U, urgency or severity. How time sensitive or critical is it for us to have a better or great internal HR system? Well, a lot of us have limped along with some pretty crappy HR systems and somehow figured it out or gotten it done. Where we couldn't get it done, we just went to HR or emailed them and said, how many days off do I get? So how urgent or severe is this? It's probably not a top priority for your company, even though we all wish it is. So I'm going to give this kind of a middle of the road score. It's probably something that a lot of people at your company are calling for improvement on, but maybe your company hasn't prioritized yet. So I'll give it a 3 out of 5, kind of as a middle point. And finally, cost to reverse or undo or fix. Very often, these HR systems are outside systems, third party systems that people are reviewing and buying, and they take weeks, if not months, to compare different systems to each other and make a choice that is hopefully best for your company. At least we wish, we hope that this is being scrutinized this closely, but of course, it isn't always. So, what would be the cost to undo or reverse this? I would say that's probably a little bit higher than we would imagine, because setting up an entire company's HR system with its benefits, if Ira were still here, he could tell us how difficult this is. This is probably difficult and ugly and time consuming, and you probably don't want to do this every year or every few years. You want to try to find a vendor that you can really stick with and customize it appropriately to your company. So, since this would cost a lot to undo, but wouldn't be a complete bank breaker, I'll just also give this a 3. I could see it being a 3 or a 4, but I'll give it a 3. So, and again, that 3 gets doubled because cost to reverse is doubled. So let's see what we've got. We've got 3, 6, 10, 18. we've got a score of 18 out of 25. That's pretty high. I'll open up my calculator really quickly. 18 divided by 25, that's a 72%. So 72 out of 100. That's obviously not super high, mission critical, top priority, stop the world stuff. But you can see that the internal HR system at your company, if it fits the criteria as I'm imagining them, and again, this is just a guess, that's pretty high. So that's something that we would definitely want to spend more time with, make sure experts are involved, get UX and CX involved in helping to customize it, maybe doing some research to learn what internal employees expect from the HR system and need from it so that we're really making sure that we select the system that matches everyone's needs the best. So again, the decision matrix reminds us that we do want experts involved. Maybe we should spend a little bit more time on this and not rush into the first system we find or the cheapest system we find. That decision matrix reminds us this could be very important to our company. It's important to our strategy. It could cost us a lot of time and money to have to pick another vendor, install it, customize it, get all the employees in and all of their time off and perks and payment. So just a reminder, again, the Delta CX decision matrix is just a method you can use to look at the importance of a decision, maybe decide who should do the work, and how much we need to invest in that to get it right the first time. And again, it's really easy with things like MVPs for them to end up a little bit lower on the scale if we feel like, well, it's not affecting too many people. It's really kind of a first run. It's really easy to undo. Sure. But also remember that your MVP is supposed to be a first peek at something that hopefully will be larger and more feature filled down the road. So we don't want to mess it up now and then hope to improve it later. The MVP should be great, and what we do later should be great. So just a reminder, we are live. Thank you to the 14 people joining us live on LinkedIn right now, and we've got a couple of people over on YouTube. I am taking questions live. If anybody has any question about making decisions at work and how we can judge some of these decisions and how we can use the decision matrix to help us communicate to people outside, either inside our department or outside the UX and CX department, to other stakeholders, to cross functional teammates about who should do this work and how important it is. And of course, you guys know that I'm not a big fan of design thinking and design sprints and a lot of these things that say just get everybody in a room and do some exercises. I think that's another thing that the decision matrix could be used for. The higher priority something is, the more make or break, the more expensive it's going to be to undo, the more close to the heart of our strategy this is, the more I'd want to trust this to the teams that specialize in coming up with what these solutions might be. That's probably your UX and CX team. It may or may not be a research and development division where people are heavily researching the market. And again, sometimes R&D is part of UX or CX. It could be part of marketing, but we should be collaborating with them. So to me, there are times where, sure, we could do a design sprint, we could do some design thinking exercises. I'm no fan of those, but if something is lower priority, sure, let's spend our time and money on that. But the more important something is to our company, the more that I want to see the experts and the pros handle it. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't be collaborative with other teammates. I want them to be collaborative. So this is not a, hey, we're taking our ball and we're going home. That's never the case. There's nothing in Delta CX that says we take the ball and go home. But if we want to maintain our autonomy and keep our power and our decision making, then we have to own our domain. We have to own the CX and UX domain and not give up our power and decision making to other people, not quote unquote democratize our decision making to other people, because guess what? They're not democratizing their domain's decision making to us. We do not have an increased ability to make product decisions, an increased ability to make engineering or marketing decisions. Even if we are more collaborative with those people, as I hope we will be, that doesn't mean that we are given an equal democratic say in the decisions. So just be careful of some of that. I'll have more coming out about that in January about the difference between collaboration, work by committee, and democratization. So look for that article coming out soon. So since we don't have any questions today and I've been going for a half hour, hopefully this makes the Delta CX decision matrix clear and it's something you can give a try at your job or somewhere else in your life or world. As usual, check us out at deltacx.com, and please don't forget the Delta CX conference is coming up on January 24th. It's called Concentric. You can see it from the events part of our website, and it was $97 to attend. It's totally live and online and remote. You can dial in from anywhere through Zoom. But some people told me at this time of year and without finding jobs, even $97 is a little bit hard to come by right now. So as of today, I have changed the pricing on it where it's kind of pay what you want. If you have $97 and you want to give that to the cause, please do. If you would love to attend the event online and do not have any funds at this time, you may pick the free option. Every attendee will get the same access. So this is not a freemium thing. This is just a let's get everybody to this conference thing. Preferably people paying for it, but understandably for those who can't. So please do check out Concentric. I handpicked all of the sessions, and they are hands down the most interesting sessions I've seen in years. They are not the same sessions you're going to see at every UX and CX conference. These are some really neat things. So check out the lineup at deltacx.com/concentric or find it under the events tab. And again, with no questions in LinkedIn and no questions in YouTube, I thank everybody who joined today for the live podcast. And just a reminder of what else is coming this week for those of you who are fans of the live streams. I've got 2 more live streams coming up this week. As usual, tomorrow is Tuesday, and I will be doing office hours and Ask Me Anything at its usual time, which is 4:30 Italy time. What is that? p.m. India time. 3:30 p.m. UK. Somebody help me here. What? 10:30 in the morning East Coast USA. 7:30 in the morning West Coast USA. Every Tuesday, I answer questions totally live, totally open. Any questions about CX, UX, methods, careers, problems at work. And I also have. Hold on, I made a sign for this. I have a new link you can go to, the Ask Me Anything link. For those of you who would like to ask anonymous questions and you don't want to be seen in YouTube or LinkedIn asking questions, especially if you're struggling at your job and you don't want us to see who you are and where you work, please go to deltacx.link, not .com. This is my URL shortener, deltacx.link/AMA, like Ask Me Anything. Ask your question there. It'll get emailed to me totally anonymously, and I promise to answer all those questions. And then Wednesday, I'm going to do a brand new type of live stream that I really hope you'll join us for. It is going to be improv comedy. We are going to be silly. We are going to have fun. There's nothing you can do wrong. It is all senses of humor welcome, though let's keep it clean. And basically, you are all going to be invited to a mural board. You do not need a mural account. And we are going to improvise with comedy in our hearts and empathy map. So, lots of great Delta CX live events happening this week, and I will see everybody there. And thank you for joining me on today's podcast.